because the guilt is overwhelming. What stops you? Jasper asked, and I realized this was a test. He needed to know if Mom was serious about changing or if this was elaborate guilt-driven theater. My son, my patients at the library who count on me for book recommendations and computer help. The monthly donation I make to therapy funds. The fact that if I gave up now, your suffering would have been completely meaningless. She looked directly at Jasper. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure I never do it again, and I can try to help others avoid making the same mistakes. That's all I have. Jasper nodded slowly, made a note in his laptop. Thank you for being honest. The book took Jasper another year to write. When it was published, it made a small splash in certain internet communities, sparked discussions about doxing and amateur investigations and the danger of being certain you're right. Mom bought 20 copies, gave them to her therapist, her book club, the neighbors she'd wronged. People should know what I did, she said when I asked why she was distributing evidence of her worst mistake. And they should know how easy it is to become me if you're not careful. The book dedication read, "To the families I hurt, and to anyone who thinks they're always right, you're not. Learn from my mistakes." Some people in the neighborhood read it and distance themselves from Mom again. Others read it and seem to respect her more for taking responsibility. The library where she worked had an awkward staff meeting where her boss asked if the book's portrayal was accurate. "Yes," Mom had said simply. "All of it." "And you've changed?" "I'm trying to. Every day." She kept her job. Barely, but she kept it. 3 years after Jasper first appeared on our doorstep with his cryptic message, I came home to find him and Mom working on a presentation together. They were speaking at a local community college about the dangers of internet vigilantism. "We're calling it When Certainty Becomes Cruelty," Mom explained. Jasper talks about what happened to him. I talk about why I did it and what I've learned. "How's it going?" "Terrifying," Mom admitted. "Standing up in front of people and confessing to the worst thing I've ever done. But necessary." Jasper looked up from his laptop. "Your mom's really good at explaining her thought process. Helps people understand how easy it is to fall into that mindset." They did the presentation 6 times over the next few months, at colleges and libraries and community centers. I went to one of them, watched from the back as Mom stood at a podium and methodically destroyed her own reputation in front of a room of strangers. "I was wrong," she said, again and again throughout the presentation. "I was absolutely certain I was right, and I was completely wrong, and a family was destroyed because of my mistake." During the Q&A after one presentation, someone asked Jasper, "Have you forgiven her?" He thought about it for a moment. "I'm working toward it. Forgiveness isn't a destination, it's a process. Some days I'm closer than others." "And you?" the person asked Mom. "Have you forgiven yourself?" "No," Mom said simply. "I don't think I ever will. But I'm learning to live with what I did and use it to help others avoid my mistakes." After the presentation, as we were all having coffee together, Jasper said something that stuck with me. "You know what the weirdest part of all this is? Your mom destroyed my life, but now we're working together to prevent other people from doing the same thing. 5 years ago, I never would have imagined this." "Is it helping?" I asked. "Doing these presentations?" "Yeah, turns my trauma into something useful. Makes the suffering feel less pointless." Mom was quiet on the drive home. Finally, she said, "I don't deserve his forgiveness." "Probably not," I agreed. "But he's choosing to move forward with you anyway. That's his choice to make. I'm so tired, Levi, of carrying this guilt, of trying to be better, of constantly monitoring myself to make sure I don't slip back. That's what change feels like. It's exhausting." She laughed bitterly. "I used to be someone people feared. Now I'm just someone trying not to fuck up again. Is that so bad? No, it's just different. Hard to adjust to." 5 years after Jasper's visit, I got engaged to Kira. Mom cried when I told her, happy tears this time. "You found someone good," she said. "Someone who sees you for who you are. She's met you at your worst and stuck around," I pointed out. "That's saying something. I'm glad. You deserve happiness." Jasper and Emma came to the engagement party. It was still a little weird, having the guy whose life my mom had destroyed at my celebration, but it also felt right somehow. Like we'd all moved past the worst of it and found something resembling peace. "Your mom asked me to be part of the wedding party," Jasper told me. "As a reader during the ceremony. I hadn't known that." "You said yes?" "Yeah. Seemed like a good way to show that people can change, and relationships can heal even after terrible shit happens." The wedding was small, just close friends and family. Mom walked me down the aisle, and I could see tears streaming down her face the whole time. During the reception, she gave a toast. "My son is a better person than I ever was," she said. "He learned from my mistakes instead of repeating them. He chose kindness when I chose cruelty. He's everything I wish I'd been." Later, during a quiet moment, Jasper approached Mom. "I wanted to tell you something. I forgive you." Mom looked up at him stunned. "What?" "I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I'm tired of carrying anger. Because you've genuinely changed. Because holding on to hate was poisoning me. Not you." Mom started crying. I don't know what to say. Say thank you and keep being the person you are now, not the person you were. They hugged, and I watched my mom cry on the shoulder of the man whose life she destroyed. It was messy and complicated, and probably not how things were supposed to work, but it was real. After the wedding, after Kira and I returned from our honeymoon, I stopped by Mom's house to check in. She was in her garden, actually growing vegetables successfully for once. "How are you?" I asked. "Good, really good." She smiled, and it reached her eyes in a way it hadn't for years. "I'm not the person I was. I'm not sure who I am now, but I'm figuring it out. That's all any of us can do." She pulled a tomato off the vine and handed it to me. "This one's actually edible. I'm getting better at this, growing things instead of destroying them." We sat on her porch, eating sun-warm tomatoes, and for the first time in years, everything felt okay. Not perfect. There were still days when Mom struggled with her old instincts, still moments when the guilt threatened to overwhelm her. But she kept going, kept trying, kept being better. A few months later, I got a text from Jasper. Starting grad school in the fall, criminal justice. Going to study wrongful accusations and how they happen. Your mom inspired me. I showed Mom the text. She read it 3 times, then set the phone down carefully like it might break. He's turning what I did into something positive. He's resilient. He shouldn't have had to be, not because of me. No, but he is anyway, and that's what matters now. Years passed. Mom continued therapy, continued her presentations, continued her quiet work of being a better person. She never became feared again, and that was the point. She became Dorothy, who worked at the library and gave good advice and sometimes shared vegetables from her garden. Just a normal person trying to do right by the people around her. Jasper completed his grad degree, got a job with an organization that worked to prevent wrongful convictions. He and Emma got married, invited Mom to the wedding. She went, cried through the whole ceremony, and thanked them afterward for giving her more grace than she deserved. "You've earned a little grace," Emma told her. "Keep earning it." On the 10-year anniversary of that night when Jasper showed up at our door, Mom wrote him a letter. She didn't try to apologize again or rehash old territory. She just thanked him for giving her a chance to be better and told him she thought about him often, hoped he was happy. His response came a week later. "I am happy, and I hope you are too. We've both earned it." Mom framed that letter next to the one from years ago. "So I remember," she said, "where I started and where I ended up."
My fiancé forgot to end the call, and I overheard a heartbreaking conversation with his family that changed everything. I was supposed to get married last week. Didn't happen because I left the night before. I'm 26. He's 26, and we've been together for 3 years. We have twin boys who just turned 1. When I found out I was pregnant, he immediately wanted me to get rid of them. Not just suggested it, demanded it multiple times. I told him flat out that I was having these babies with or without him. I even said I wouldn't ask for child support if he wanted to walk away. I've always had a strong maternal instinct, and the timing felt right for me. I was ready to be a mom, even if it meant doing it alone. He needed time to think. I gave him 3 days. On day 3, I was literally about to break up with him when he said he'd changed his mind, that he wanted to be there. Throughout the pregnancy, he was great. Went to every appointment, rubbed my feet, built the cribs. When the twins arrived, which we definitely weren't expecting, he stepped up. I honestly don't think I could have managed 2 newborns alone, so I was grateful he stayed. For months, he was everything a father should be. Changed diapers at 3 a.m., walked them around the apartment when they wouldn't stop crying, sang to them. 6 months after they were born, he proposed. It was beautiful. He did it in our living room while both boys were asleep in their cribs. I said yes without hesitation. It felt like we'd survived the hardest part together, and now we were ready for forever. We spent 6 months planning this wedding. My parents adored him. My friends kept saying how lucky I was. I believed them. The night before our wedding, we stayed at separate places. I was at our apartment. He went to his parents' house a few blocks away. After dinner, he called me, told me he loved me, that he couldn't wait to see me walk down the aisle, that tomorrow would be the best day of our lives. I got emotional. We stayed on the phone for 20 minutes just talking about our future. When we said goodbye, I waited for him to hang up. He didn't. I heard rustling, then his dad's voice. Was that her? My fiancé sounded different. Flat. Yeah, I should have hung up, but something in his tone made me stay on the line. His mom chimed in. Then my fiancé said, "Tell her what, Mom?" His dad's voice got firmer. "That you're only going through with this because you feel trapped. Son, we raised you better than to marry someone out of obligation." My heart stopped. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. His mom continued softer now. "Those boys are adorable. We love them. But sweetheart, this isn't the life you wanted. You're only 26. You have your whole life ahead of you. You could still walk away and start fresh somewhere else." There was a long pause. Then my fiancé spoke. "I know. Trust me, I know. But what choice do I have? If I leave now, she'll drag me through court. Child support would destroy me financially. At least if I marry her, I have some control over my own money. And legally, it's easier to deal with." His dad laughed. Not a happy laugh, a bitter one. "So, you're going to spend the rest of your life pretending? That's not fair to anyone, especially those kids." My fiancé's voice cracked. "I don't know what else to do. I made my choice when I agreed to stay. I just have to live with it now. I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I stood there in our bedroom, the one we'd shared for 3 years, and felt like I couldn't breathe. The twins were asleep in the nursery. I went in, looked at their tiny faces, and something inside me just snapped into focus. I wasn't going to let my sons grow up with a father who saw them as a trap. I packed quietly. 2 bags for me, 1 bag of their essentials, diapers, formula, their favorite stuffed animals. I wrote a note and left it on the kitchen counter. Overheard everything. Don't contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. I drove to my parents' house at 2 a.m., with 2 crying babies in the back seat. My dad met me at the door, but instead of comforting me, he looked angry in a way I'd never seen. He said my fiancé had called him right after I left, told him I'd had some kind of breakdown and stolen the babies, that I wasn't stable. My dad actually believed him because apparently my fiancé had been building this narrative for weeks, telling my parents I'd been acting erratic, forgetting things, getting too emotional. Then my dad said something that made my blood turn to ice. He'd already called my fiancé back and told him where we were, and my fiancé was on his way with a police officer and emergency custody papers he'd somehow filed 2 days ago. I stared at my dad like I'd never seen him before. The porch light made his face look harsh, unfamiliar. Behind him, I could see my mom in the hallway, wringing her hands. "What did you do?" My voice came out flat. "Finn called us 3 hours ago," my dad said. "Said you'd been having episodes, getting confused. He was worried about the boys' safety." Episodes. The word hung in the air like poison. Finn had been planning this. Not just the conversation I'd overheard. He'd been systematically laying groundwork to make me look unstable. I thought back over the past 2 weeks. The way he'd asked my mom if I seemed forgetful when we had dinner. How he'd mentioned to my dad that I'd been crying a lot. The time he told my best friend Vera that I'd been talking about feeling overwhelmed. He'd been building a case. "I'm not having episodes," I said. My hands were still shaking. In the car, Mateo started crying louder. "I overheard him tonight. He doesn't want to marry me. He sees the boys as a trap. He told his parents he's only going through with it for financial control." My dad's expression didn't change. "Honey, that doesn't make sense. Finn loves those boys. He's been nothing but dedicated. Because he's scared of child support," I said. "Dad, I heard him." His exact words. My mom finally spoke from the doorway. "Maybe you misunderstood. You've been so stressed with wedding planning and the babies. It's 2 a.m. Maybe we should all just calm down and talk about this in the morning." That's when I saw headlights turn onto their street. 2 vehicles. A police cruiser and Finn's black Honda. My stomach dropped. "You need to let me in," I said. "Right now." My dad didn't move. "Finn has temporary custody papers. The judge signed them yesterday as an emergency order. He showed me a copy over the phone. If you're not letting him see his sons, you could get arrested." "Yesterday?" My voice cracked. "He filed custody papers the day before our wedding?" The cars pulled up. I watched Finn get out, his face arranged in this expression of concern that I now recognized as completely fake. The police officer was a woman, maybe in her 40s, with her hand resting on her belt. Finn walked up the driveway. "Josie, thank God. Are the boys okay?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I said very clearly, "Don't come near me." The officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Alvarez. I need to see the children. They're in the car," I said. "They're fine. They're with their mother. Mr. Brennan has emergency custody papers signed by Judge Northfield," Officer Alvarez said. Her voice was professional but not unkind. "Can I see the babies?" My dad was already walking toward my car. I watched him open the back door and start unbuckling Mateo's car seat. My mom got Silas. "No," I said. "No, you can't just take them. This is insane. He filed those papers as insurance before our wedding. He's not concerned about their safety. He's covering his ass." "Josie's been under a lot of stress," Finn said to Officer Alvarez. His voice was so gentle, so concerned. "She left without telling me where she was going. I woke up, and she was just gone with both boys. No note, no message. I've been terrified." "I left a note," I said, "on the kitchen counter. It said I overheard everything and my lawyer would be in touch." "There was no note," Finn said. He looked at Officer Alvarez. "I looked everywhere. He'd taken it. Of course he'd taken it." My dad carried Mateo up the driveway. My son was still crying, reaching for me. Something in my chest shattered. "The custody order is temporary," Officer Alvarez said to me. "It's just for 72 hours until there can be a full hearing. You're not losing your children. But right now, legally, Mr. Brennan has the right to take them." "Based on what?" I demanded. "What evidence did he show the judge?" Finn pulled out his phone. "I have texts from her friends saying she's been overwhelmed. Voice messages from her mother expressing concern. I have documentation from her doctor about postpartum depression screening." My doctor. I'd filled out a standard questionnaire at my 6-week checkup. It was routine. Every new mother does it. I'd scored a 4 out of 30. Barely anything. But he'd kept it. He'd kept that paperwork. "This is kidnapping," I said. My voice was getting louder. "This is parental alienation. This is..." "Ma'am, I need you to calm down," Officer Alvarez said. And that's when I realized I'd already lost. Because everything I did now, every word I said, every emotion I showed, would be used as evidence that I was unstable. If I cried, I was hysterical. If I yelled, I was aggressive. If I stayed calm, I was cold and detached. Finn had built a perfect trap. My mom brought Silas over. He was sleeping, his little fist curled against his cheek. I reached for him, and my mom actually stepped back. Maybe it's best if Finn takes them tonight, she said quietly. Just until everyone calms down. You can see them tomorrow. They're nursing, I said. My voice broke. Silas still nurses at night. He's going to wake up in 2 hours and I won't be there. I have formula, Finn said. It'll be okay. Officer Alvarez looked between us. I could see her making calculations, weighing risks. Young mother, middle of the night, high emotion, father with custody papers and police escort. Mr. Brennan, you can take the children, she said. Miss Harding, I strongly suggest you contact a family law attorney first thing in the morning. The hearing is scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. at the county courthouse. Monday. Today was Friday. That meant 3 days without my babies. I watched Finn take both car seats to his vehicle. My dad helped him secure them. My mom stood on the porch, her arms crossed. Officer Alvarez gave me a card with case numbers and court information. Then they were gone. Finn's taillights disappeared around the corner with my entire world strapped into his back seat. I stood in my parents' driveway until I couldn't see the cars anymore. My arms felt empty. My chest felt empty. Everything felt empty. Come inside, my mom said. We'll make tea. I turned to look at her. You gave him my babies. We didn't have a choice, honey. He had legal papers. He manipulated all of you, I said. For weeks. He made you think I was falling apart so that when this moment came, you'd question me instead of him. My dad rubbed his face. Josie, I know you're upset, but Finn has been nothing but concerned about you. Even tonight he wasn't angry. He was just worried. Because he's a liar, I said. Because he's been lying this entire time. To me, to you, to everyone. But I could see it in their faces. They didn't believe me. Or worse, they didn't want to believe me because believing me meant admitting they'd been fooled. I got back in my car. My mom called after me, but I didn't stop. I drove to a 24-hour diner on the edge of town and sat in a booth in the back, staring at my phone. It was 3:47 a.m. I pulled up my contacts and found Vera's number. She answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. Josie, what's wrong? And then I told her everything. The overheard conversation, Finn's parents, the custody papers, my parents' betrayal. Vera listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I'm so sorry, she finally said. But I need to tell you something. Finn called me last Tuesday. He said you'd been acting strange, forgetting conversations, getting really emotional over small things. He asked if I'd noticed anything. What did you say? I said you seemed fine to me. A little tired, but you have twin babies. Who wouldn't be tired? She paused. But Josie, he recorded the call. He asked me leading questions about your stress levels and whether I thought you were handling motherhood okay. I didn't realize at the time, but he was building a case. He recorded you? I heard the beep. I thought it was just a bad connection. But thinking back, he was definitely recording. I pressed my forehead against the cool diner table. He planned this. All of it. What do you need? Vera asked. Tell me what to do. I need a lawyer. The best family lawyer you know. My sister's firm handles family law. I'll text you her partner's emergency number. His name is Gideon Morris. He's expensive, but he's brutal in court. I don't care about the cost. I need my boys back. I hung up and waited for Vera's text. It came through 2 minutes later along with a message. Call him now. I already texted him. He's expecting you. Gideon Morris answered on the first ring, which told me Vera had actually woken him up and explained the situation. His voice was gravelly but alert. Miss Harding. Vera gave me the basics. Tell me everything start to finish. So I did. For the second time that night, I recounted the phone call, the conversation I'd overheard, Finn's parents, the custody papers, my parents' betrayal. Gideon listened, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he was silent for a moment. Okay, he finally said. First, stop talking to your parents. They're witnesses now and they're not on your side. They're my parents. They're witnesses who handed your children to the opposing party. You can reconcile later. Right now you need to think strategically. My throat tightened. Okay. Second, I need you to write down everything you remember from that phone call. Exact quotes if possible. Time, duration, everything. Can you do that? Yes. Third, do you have any proof that Finn didn't want these children? Texts, emails, witnesses to conversations? I thought back. My best friend from college, Nina. She was there when I told Finn I was pregnant. She heard him demand I get an abortion. She heard me tell him I'd do it alone. Get me her contact information. Anyone else? My OBGYN, Dr. Reyes. Finn missed the first 3 appointments. She asked me if I had support at home. Good. I'll need her records. What about the pregnancy and first few months? Any evidence he wasn't involved? He wasn't at the anatomy scan. He missed the hospital tour. He didn't come to the first pediatrician appointment. I was remembering now. Things I'd dismissed as him being busy with work. He didn't sign up for the birthing class. I went alone. Better and better. Now, this conversation you overheard. Is there any chance it was recorded? Any chance your phone captured it? I pulled up my call log. The call with Finn had lasted 23 minutes. Long after we'd said goodbye. It might be in my phone records, I said. The call stayed connected. Don't touch anything on your phone. Don't delete anything. Don't add anything. I need that phone exactly as it is. Can you bring it to my office at 8 a.m.? Yes. And Miss Harding? This is important. From this moment forward, you are calm, collected, and completely stable. No emotional outbursts. No social media posts. No text to Finn beyond logistical information about the children. Everything you do will be scrutinized. Understand? I understand. Good. Get some sleep if you can. I'll see you in 5 hours. He hung up. I sat in that diner booth until the sun started rising, writing down every word I could remember from Finn's conversation with his parents. By the time I walked into Gideon Morris's office at 8 a.m., I had 4 single-spaced pages of documentation. His office was downtown in a brick building with his name on a brass plate. The receptionist, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, took one look at me and said, "You must be Josie. Go right in. He's expecting you." Gideon's office was all dark wood and law books. He was maybe 50, with gray at his temples and reading glasses perched on his nose. He gestured for me to sit. "Let's see what we have." I handed him my phone and the written documentation. He read through it slowly, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. "This is good," he said. "Very good. You have exact quotes, timestamps, context. Now, let's talk about the custody hearing on Monday." "I need to get them back before Monday," I said. "They're 1-year-old. They don't understand why I'm not there." "I know. But here's the reality. Finn has temporary custody papers signed by a judge. To overturn that, we need to prove he obtained them fraudulently or that they're not in the children's best interest. We have 3 days to build that case. So what do? We get affidavits. From Nina about his reaction to the pregnancy, from Dr. Reyes about his absence during prenatal care, from your pediatrician about his involvement, or lack thereof. In the first year, we subpoena your phone records to prove that calls stayed connected. We document everything he said to your parents and friends about your supposed instability, and we present it all to Judge Northfield on Monday morning. What if he's good to them this weekend? What if he plays the perfect dad? Then we show the judge that he's capable of playing a role when it suits him. That the man who demanded you abort these children suddenly became Father of the Year only after you made it clear you were having them with or without him. That he proposed not out of love, but out of financial calculation. That everything he's done has been strategic, not emotional." I nodded. My chest hurt. "Can I see them? Before Monday?" Gideon's expression softened slightly. "The custody order doesn't prevent visitation, but I'd advise against it right now. Anything you do, any emotion you show, will be documented and used against you. Wait until Monday. Win the hearing. Then you'll have them back." 3 days had never seemed so long. I spent Friday gathering documentation. Nina sent me screenshots of texts from 3 years ago where she'd called Finn an asshole for demanding I abort.
My fiance's phone rang during our wedding vows with the most romantic, spicy ringtone I'd ever heard. I was standing at the altar, crying happy tears, looking into the eyes of the man who made me feel seen like nobody ever had. He started his vows, talking about how I was the sun of his solar system. Right as he said those words, his phone started ringing. "Pony," by Genuine blared through the church. Every single person turned to stare. Norman's face went white. He fumbled with his pocket while the grinding beat echoed off the walls. Finally, he silenced it. "Who was that?" I asked. "Wrong number. Probably spam." "Norman, that's a custom ringtone. You assigned that song to someone specific. Show me the phone." He pulled it closer to his chest. "It's nobody. Can we just continue?" "No. We can't." I grabbed my dress and walked off the altar. Norman followed me into the church lobby. Both families rushed after us. "Was it another woman?" I asked. "No, I swear." "Then who was it?" Norman's mom pushed through the crowd. "It's his cousin Rebecca. She's overseas." I stared at her. "He has that song saved for his cousin?" She stuttered about an inside joke. "That's disgusting, and you know you're lying." I tried to grab the phone. He jerked away and it slipped, flying into the decorative fountain. The screen went black. Norman actually looked relieved. My maid of honor, Claire, stopped everyone. "If that call was just your cousin, why are you happy the phone is dead?" "I want the truth," I said, "or this wedding is over." Norman was shaking. "I can't. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay," he broke. "The woman's name is Vanessa. She's the mother of my child." The words didn't register. "What?" "I have a son. He's 4 years old. I never told you." My family exploded. I couldn't breathe. "But why does she have that ringtone?" "I said it years ago. She never calls, so I forgot to change it." "That doesn't explain why you were panicked." Norman looked sick. 3 months ago, Vanessa came back to town. We slept together. Once. My dad lunged forward, but my brothers held him back. "Why was she calling you today?" His mother answered. "She's pregnant." My knees buckled. Claire caught me. I pulled out my own phone. "Give me her number. Right now." Norman gave it to me. I called on speaker. The lobby went silent. "Hello?" A woman's voice answered. "This is Norman's fiancé. I'm at the altar right now. Is it true?" Long pause. "He didn't tell you?" "Tell me what?" Vanessa laughed, tired. "I'm not pregnant." "I called to warn you. Norman's been telling people I am, so he has an excuse to stay connected to me. He's been showing up at my apartment for months saying he wants to be a family again. I told him I'd call you if he didn't stop." "So there's no second pregnancy?" "No. But everything else is true. The son, the affair, all of it. I hung up. Norman started talking fast. Baby, I can explain. You lied about a pregnancy to cover up stalking your ex? It wasn't stalking. You have a 4-year-old son you hid from me for 2 years. You cheated on me 3 months before our wedding. And when you got caught, you invented a fake pregnancy. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. The wedding is off. His mother started wailing. His father dragged him toward the exit. My family surrounded me like a wall. Claire helped me out of the church. I was still wearing my dress when we got to her car. She didn't ask where I wanted to go. She just drove. We ended up at a diner. I sat in a booth in my wedding gown eating pancakes at 4 p.m., mascara running down my face. The waitress just kept refilling my coffee. Claire sat across from me. What do you need? I need to know how I missed all of this. You didn't miss anything. He hid it. That's not the same thing. I thought about the past 2 years. Every time Norman got quiet when his phone buzzed. Every business trip that seemed too long. Every time his mother looked at me with something that wasn't quite warmth. They all knew. I finished my pancakes and walked out into the parking lot still wearing my dress. What now? Claire asked. I looked down at the white fabric, the beading I'd spent months choosing, the train dragging through gravel. Now I take this off, I said, and I never look back. Claire's apartment was smaller than the place I'd shared with Norman, but it felt safer somehow. I sat on her gray couch in my wedding dress and stared at the coffee table without really seeing it. My phone kept lighting up on the cushion next to me. Norman's name flashed across the screen again and again. Then my mom's name. Then my dad's. Then numbers I didn't recognize. I picked up the phone and turned it face down, but I could still feel it buzzing against my palm through the fabric of my dress. Claire brought me a glass of water and set it on the table in front of me. I didn't drink it. She sat in the chair across from me and didn't say anything. The silence felt heavy, but not uncomfortable. I looked down at the white beading on my dress and thought about how I'd tried on 17 dresses before finding this one. Norman had come to one of the fittings even though everyone said the groom wasn't supposed to see the dress. He'd told me I looked beautiful, and I'd felt so lucky that he couldn't wait. Now I wondered if he'd been checking his phone the whole time, texting Vanessa while I spun around in white fabric. My phone buzzed again. I turned it over and saw Norman's face on the screen, the photo from our trip to the mountains last fall. I'd taken that picture right after he'd told me he loved me for the first time. I pressed the power button and held it until the screen went black. The dress felt too tight suddenly. I stood up and reached behind me for the zipper, but my hands were shaking too much to grab it. Claire got up and walked over without me having to ask. She unzipped it slowly and the fabric loosened around my ribs. I could breathe again. I stepped out of the dress and stood there in my white underwear and strapless bra, looking at the pile of expensive fabric on Claire's floor. She picked it up carefully and started folding it. I watched her smooth out the wrinkles and arrange the train. She was treating it like it mattered even though we both knew I'd never wear it again. I sat back down on the couch in my underwear and pulled a throw blanket over my legs. Claire finished folding the dress and set it on the chair. She sat next to me and we didn't talk. The clock on her wall ticked past 7, then 8, then 9. I kept thinking about the past 2 years. Every time Norman's phone rang and he'd step into another room to answer it. Every weekend he said he had to work late. Every time his mom looked at me during family dinners with this expression I couldn't quite read. They all knew. His whole family knew he had a son, and they watched me plan a wedding and never said a word. I thought about Vanessa's voice on the phone, tired and matter-of-fact. She hadn't sounded angry or jealous. She'd sounded like someone who'd been dealing with Norman's lies for a long time and was just exhausted. I wondered what she'd told their son about his dad. I wondered if the kid knew Norman was supposed to get married today. The thought made my stomach hurt. Claire got up around midnight and came back with sweatpants and a t-shirt. I put them on and the dress stayed folded on the chair like a ghost. We sat on the couch and Claire asked me if I wanted to talk about it. I started going through everything in my head out loud. The business trip to Chicago that lasted 5 days when it should have been 3. The time I'd surprised Norman at his office and he'd seemed annoyed instead of happy. The way he always kept his phone face down on tables. The random Tuesday nights he said he had to help his brother move furniture or fix his dad's car. I'd believed all of it because why wouldn't I? People don't lie about helping their family. Except Norman did lie about his family. He lied about having a son. He lied about sleeping with Vanessa. He lied about her being pregnant. He'd probably lied about 100 other things I hadn't even figured out yet. Claire listened and didn't try to make me feel better with fake comfort. She just let me talk. Around 3 in the morning, I finally stopped talking, and we sat there in silence. My eyes felt dry and scratchy. I was too tired to cry anymore. Claire brought me a pillow and another blanket, and I lay down on her couch. She went to her bedroom and I heard her door close softly. I stared at the ceiling and watched the shadows from the streetlight outside move across the white paint. I thought about how this morning I'd woken up excited to marry Norman. Now I was sleeping on my best friend's couch in borrowed clothes and my whole life was different. I woke up to sun coming through Claire's living room window. My neck hurt from the couch pillow and my mouth tasted awful. I reached for my phone before remembering I'd turned it off. I held the power button and waited for it to come back on. 17 missed calls, 12 from Norman, 3 from his mom, 2 from my mom. I had 14 text messages. I opened the one from Norman's mom first. It said we needed to talk about misunderstandings, and that Norman was devastated, and that I should give him a chance to explain properly. I deleted it. Norman's texts were long paragraphs about how sorry he was, and how he never meant to hurt me, and how we could work through this if I just gave him a chance. I didn't read all of them. I heard Claire moving around in her bedroom, and then she came out wearing her robe. She looked at my face and asked if I'd checked my phone. I nodded. She went to the kitchen and started making coffee without saying anything else. The smell filled the apartment and reminded me of Sunday mornings with Norman. We used to make breakfast together and read the news on our phones, and it had felt so normal and comfortable. Now I couldn't tell which parts of that had been real and which parts had been Norman playing a role. Claire brought me coffee in the blue mug she always used for guests. I wrapped my hands around it and felt the warmth. She sat in the chair with her own mug and told me I didn't owe anyone explanations right now. I knew she was right, but I also knew I couldn't hide at her apartment forever. Eventually, I'd have to deal with the wedding vendors and the apartment I shared with Norman, and all the practical pieces of a life I'd been building with someone who didn't exist. My phone rang and my dad's name showed up on the screen. I answered it and he asked where I was. I told him I was at Claire's. He said he and my mom were coming over. I said okay, and hung up. 20 minutes later, they were knocking on Claire's door. My mom hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe, and my dad stood behind her looking like he wanted to punch something. Claire let them in and made more coffee. We all sat in her small living room, and my parents told me that Norman's family had tried calling them last night. His dad had left a voicemail saying there had been a terrible misunderstanding, and that Norman loved me and wanted to make things right. My mom said she'd called back and told them there was no misunderstanding. Norman had lied and cheated and hidden a child. Those were facts, not misunderstandings. My dad said Norman's dad had tried to argue that Norman had been planning to tell me about his son after the wedding. My dad had hung up on him. I felt grateful that my parents were angry on my behalf because I was too tired to be angry anymore. I just felt empty. My mom asked what I needed and I didn't know how to answer. I needed the past 2 years to be different. I needed Norman to not be a liar. I needed to not feel this stupid for missing all the signs. But I couldn't say any of that, so I just shrugged. My brothers showed up an hour later with garbage bags full of my stuff. They'd gone to the church and collected everything from the bridal room, and then they'd gone to the apartment while Norman was out. My oldest brother set the bags down in Claire's entryway and told me they'd grabbed clothes and my laptop and some other things. He said Norman had come home while they were there, but they'd finished packing and left without talking to him. My middle brother said it had taken everything in him not to say something. I thanked them and they both hugged me. My youngest brother asked if I needed them to do anything else. I told them no. They left after making me promise to call if I needed anything. I looked at the garbage bags full of my life and felt overwhelmed. Claire helped me drag them into her bedroom and we started going through them. My brothers had grabbed things randomly. 3 pairs of shoes, but not the ones I wore most. 5 t-shirts, but none of my jeans. My laptop, but not the charger. I pulled out a framed photo of me and Norman from last Christmas and stared at it. We looked so happy. I set it face down on Claire's dresser and kept unpacking. By afternoon, I knew I had to start dealing with the practical mess. I found a notebook in one of the bags and sat at Claire's kitchen table. I started writing down everything that needed to be canceled or dealt with. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, the florist, the honeymoon flights and hotel, the apartment lease that was in both our names, the joint bank account we'd opened for wedding expenses. The list kept getting longer and I felt my chest getting tight. Each item represented something I'd planned and looked forward to. The venue where we were supposed to have our reception. The flowers I'd spent hours choosing. The honeymoon in Italy that Norman had suggested because he knew I'd always wanted to go. Every single thing on the list was a piece of the future I'd thought I had. I got to the bottom of the page and added one more item. Wedding dress alterations I'd already paid for. I'd never need the final fitting now. I put the pen down and put my head in my hands. Claire came over and looked at the list. She didn't say anything for a minute. Then she suggested I call the wedding planner first. Valeria could help coordinate with all the vendors. I didn't have to make every call myself. I looked up at Claire and felt a rush of gratitude. I'd been so focused on the list that I'd forgotten I'd hired someone specifically to handle wedding logistics. I found Valeria's number in my phone and called before I could talk myself out of it. She answered on the second ring and said my name like a question. I told her the wedding was canceled and I needed help dealing with the vendors. There was a pause and then her voice came back softer. She said she'd heard what happened. One of the guests had called her yesterday to ask about getting their gift back. Valeria said she was so sorry and she wanted to help however she could. I felt my throat get tight, but I didn't cry. I told her about the list and asked if she could handle contacting everyone. She said most vendors had cancellation policies in their contracts. Some deposits would be lost, but she'd do her best to minimize the damage. She asked if I could write a brief statement she could share with the vendors so she didn't have to explain the details over and over. I said yes and thanked her. She told me to send the statement whenever I was ready, and that she'd start reaching out to vendors this week. We hung up and I felt a tiny bit of the weight lift. At least I wouldn't have to call the florist and explain that my fiancé had a secret child and a side relationship. Valeria could just say the wedding was canceled due to personal circumstances and leave it at that. That evening, I was sitting on Claire's couch trying to write the statement for vendors when the intercom buzzed. Claire got up to answer it, and I heard Norman's voice through the speaker. He was asking to talk to me. Begging, really. His voice sounded desperate, and I felt nothing. Claire told him to leave. He kept talking, saying things had gotten out of hand and he just needed 5 minutes to explain. Claire said if he didn't leave, she was calling the police. I heard him say my name through the speaker, pleading. Claire pressed the button to end the call and came back to the couch. She asked if I was okay. I nodded. I pulled out my phone and looked at Norman's texts again. He'd sent 6 more since this morning. All of them were variations of the same thing. He was sorry. He loved me. He wanted to fix this. He never meant for things to go this far. I read them all and felt that same emptiness. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. I opened a new message and typed that we would communicate only through email about practical matters like the apartment and our shared belongings. I hit send and put my phone down. 30 seconds later, it rang. Norman's face filled the screen. He was calling instead of respecting the boundary I'd just set. I stared at his photo for 3 rings. Then I blocked his number. The phone stopped ringing. I felt a small surge of something that might have been power. It wasn't much, but it was the first time since yesterday that I'd made a choice that was entirely mine. The next morning, my phone rang while I was still in bed at Claire's place. The screen showed a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. A woman's voice introduced herself as the venue manager. She said Valeria had contacted her about the cancellation, but she wanted to reach out personally. I sat up and waited for whatever bad news was coming. She explained they couldn't refund the deposit because the contract was clear about cancellations within 2 weeks of the event. My stomach dropped. Then she said they were willing to apply the full amount to a future event if I wanted to reschedule within a year. I actually laughed out loud. The sound came out harsh and bitter. She went quiet on the other end. I told her I appreciated the offer, but I wouldn't be getting married there or anywhere else anytime soon. She said she understood and that she was sorry about what happened. I thanked her and hung up. The idea that I'd ever want to walk back into that venue made me feel sick. I spent the rest of the morning trying to figure out what I actually owed and what I could get back. Claire made coffee and sat with me while I went through every contract and receipt. The numbers kept getting bigger. I called my cousin Nadia around noon. She's a lawyer who specializes in contracts. She said she could meet me that afternoon. I got dressed in actual clothes for the first time in days and took the bus to her office downtown. Nadia's assistant showed me to a conference room with big windows overlooking the city. Nadia came in a few minutes later carrying a legal pad. She hugged me first and then sat down across from me. I handed her the folder with all my wedding contracts. She put on her reading glasses and started going through each document. I watched her face for any sign of good news. She took notes and made small sounds while she read. After 20 minutes, she looked up and said most of the vendors had solid cancellation clauses. I was probably out about $15,000 in deposits that were clearly marked as non-refundable. The number hit me like a punch. $15,000 gone because Norman couldn't tell the truth. I felt physically sick. Nadia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She asked if I wanted to pursue any legal action against Norman. I could potentially sue for fraud or emotional distress. I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. Then I told her I just wanted to be done with him. I didn't want months or years of court dates and lawyers and seeing his face. Nadia nodded like she expected that answer. She said she understood, but she'd put together some information for me anyway in case I changed my mind later. She pulled out a folder and explained what my options would be if I decided to go that route. I took the folder and thanked her. She didn't charge me for the consultation. She said family doesn't pay family. I left her office feeling both grateful and defeated. At least I knew where I stood financially now. 3 days after the wedding that didn't happen, I had to go back to work. I couldn't hide at Claire's apartment forever. I got up early and put on work clothes that felt strange after days in sweatpants. The bus ride felt too long. I kept thinking about what I'd say when people asked questions. My boss had texted saying to take all the time I needed, but I'd replied that I wanted to come back. Sitting around thinking about Norman was worse than being busy. I walked into the office and felt every eye turn toward me. People who normally said good morning looked away. My boss saw me and immediately came over. She pulled me into her office and closed the door. She said again that I could take more time. I told her I'd rather work than sit at home. She studied my face for a moment and then nodded. She said to let her know if I needed anything. I went to my desk and tried to focus on emails. My hands were shaking. Around 10, a coworker named Jessica stopped by my desk. She had this bright smile on her face. She said she saw the wedding was supposed to be last weekend and asked how married life was treating me. The words hung in the air between us. I felt my face get hot. I told her the wedding didn't happen. Her smile disappeared. She asked what I meant. I said it got canceled at the altar. Her expression went from confused to shocked to horrified in about 3 seconds. She started apologizing and backing away from my desk. I told her it was fine, but she kept saying sorry. Other people nearby had heard. I could feel them staring. I wanted to disappear into the floor. Jessica finally left and I put my head down and pretended to work. The rest of the day crawled by with people either avoiding me completely or giving me sad looks. I'd never been so happy to leave work in my life. That evening, I was scrolling through social media when a message popped up from someone named Milo. The name seemed familiar. I clicked on his profile and recognized him from pictures with Norman in college. My first thought was that he was reaching out to defend Norman or make excuses. The message said he needed to talk to me about something important. He said it was about Norman and he knew I probably didn't want to hear from any of his friends right now. But he promised he wasn't reaching out to defend him. Something about the way he wrote it seemed genuine, not like he was making excuses. I stared at the message for a long time. Finally, I wrote back asking what he wanted to talk about. He replied almost immediately. He said it would be better to meet in person if I was willing. He suggested a coffee shop downtown. I told Claire about it and she said to meet him somewhere public and let her know where I was. I agreed to meet him the next day after work. The coffee shop was busy when I got there the next afternoon. Milo was already sitting at a corner table. He stood up when he saw me and shook my hand. He looked nervous. We both ordered coffee and sat down. He thanked me for meeting him. Then he said he'd been feeling guilty for months. I asked him why. He explained that Norman had told him about Vanessa and the kid last year. He said Norman mentioned it casually like it was something I already knew about. Milo had even asked Norman once how I felt about the whole situation with his son. Norman told him I was fine with it, and we were working on integrating his kid into our lives. Milo believed him. He said he only realized a few days ago that I'd had no idea. One of Norman's other friends had mentioned how shocked I must have been to find out at the altar. That's when Milo understood that Norman had been lying to everyone about what I knew. He looked miserable telling me this. Milo kept talking. He said Norman used to talk about me and Vanessa in this weird way. Like he was comparing us. He'd make comments about how different we were, how I was organized and driven and Vanessa was more spontaneous and emotional, how he got different things from each of us. At the time, Milo thought Norman was just talking about his past relationship versus his current one. But now looking back, it seemed like Norman was talking about two ongoing relationships. I felt cold listening to this. I asked Milo if he thought the hookup 3 months ago was really just once. Milo looked uncomfortable. He said he didn't know for sure, but Norman had mentioned seeing Vanessa multiple times in the past year. Always with some excuse about co-parenting or their son needing something. Milo had thought it was innocent at the time. Now he wasn't so sure. I sat back in my chair and felt the weight of it. The cheating probably wasn't one mistake. It was probably ongoing. I asked Milo why he was telling me all this now. He took a sip of his coffee and said Norman had called him yesterday. Norman spent 20 minutes painting himself as the victim, saying his private business got exposed unfairly, saying people were overreacting, saying I'd embarrassed him in front of everyone. Milo said Norman showed zero real remorse. He was just mad that he got caught. Milo told Norman he was wrong and Norman got defensive and hung up on him. That's when Milo decided he couldn't stay silent anymore. He said he felt like he'd been part of the lie by not questioning things sooner. I told him it wasn't his fault. Norman had lied to everyone. Milo still looked guilty, but he nodded. We finished our coffee and I thanked him for telling me the truth. He said if I ever needed anything or wanted to talk to reach out. I left the coffee shop feeling worse than when I'd arrived. Every new piece of information just showed me how blind I'd been. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on Claire's couch staring at the ceiling. Finally, I grabbed my phone and started going through old photos. Pictures from the past 2 years with Norman. I looked at them differently now. In one photo from 6 months ago, Norman was checking his phone with this secretive expression. I'd thought nothing of it at the time. In another photo from a work trip he'd taken last spring, his smile looked forced. I remembered he'd been unreachable for hours that weekend. He'd blamed it on bad cell service. There were so many little things. Times he'd angled his phone away from me. Nights he'd come home later than expected with vague explanations about traffic or a work thing running long. Calls he'd taken in another room. I'd trusted him, so I'd never questioned any of it. Now every memory felt poisoned. I felt so stupid for missing all the signs. Claire heard me moving around and came out of her bedroom. She sat down next to me and asked what I was doing. I showed her the photos and told her about all the things I'd dismissed. She took my phone and set it down. She said I trusted him because that's what you're supposed to do in a relationship. She said his lying didn't mean I was stupid. It meant he was a liar. I wanted to believe her, but I still felt like I should have known something was wrong. We stayed up talking until almost 3 a.m. before I finally fell asleep. The apartment building looked the same as always, but walking up to it felt like approaching a crime scene. Claire parked her car and turned off the engine. She asked if I was ready, and I nodded even though I wasn't. We got out and headed toward the entrance. Norman was already waiting in the lobby. He stood up when he saw me and took a step forward with his arms slightly open. I stepped back before he could get close. His face did this hurt expression like I'd slapped him. Claire positioned herself between us and asked where we should start. Norman led us to the elevator without saying anything. The ride up to the 3rd floor felt endless. Nobody spoke. The doors opened and we walked down the familiar hallway to apartment 3B. Norman unlocked the door and I stepped inside a space that used to feel like home. Now it just felt like a place full of lies. I'd brought empty boxes and trash bags. Claire set them down by the door. Norman cleared his throat and started talking about how we should discuss things. I cut him off and pointed at the boxes. I told him we were here to divide belongings, not talk. He kept going anyway. He said he'd been scared to tell me about his son because he thought I'd leave. I stared at him. I told him I would have understood about a child from a previous relationship. Lots of people have kids from past relationships. Requested Reds is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. But lying for 2 years was different. Cheating 3 months before our wedding was different. Norman actually tried to argue that the cheating just happened because Vanessa was emotional about co-parenting issues. Like that was supposed to make it better. Like being emotional was an excuse to sleep with your ex. Claire stepped forward and told Norman to stop making excuses. She said he needed to focus on dividing belongings, or she was calling my brothers to come handle it. Norman's face went pale at the mention of my brothers. He finally shut up. We spent the next 2 hours sorting through everything in complete silence. I moved through the apartment picking up items that were clearly mine. My books, my clothes, my grandmother's quilt. Norman kept trying to make eye contact, but I refused to look at him. Every item I touched reminded me of some moment in our relationship that turned out to be fake. The coffee mug I'd bought him for his birthday. The throw pillows we'd picked out together. The framed photo from a trip where he'd probably been texting Vanessa the whole time. I left everything we'd bought together. I didn't want any of it. Norman tried to insist I take the coffee maker we'd picked out on a vacation to the mountains. I snapped that I didn't want anything that would make me think of him every morning. He set it down and didn't argue. By the time we finished, I had 3 boxes of stuff. That's all I was taking from 2 years of living together. 3 boxes. Claire helped me carry them down to her car. Norman followed us and tried to say something as we loaded the trunk. I slammed it shut and got in the passenger seat without responding. Claire drove away, and I watched the building disappear in the side mirror. My mom called me that evening while I was unpacking at Claire's place. She sounded tired. She told me that Norman's mother had called her suggesting a meeting between our families to find a path forward. I almost laughed. My mom said she'd politely told Norman's mother that wouldn't be happening and asked her not to contact us again. The fact that his mom still thought there could be a path forward showed she understood nothing. There was no path. There was no forward. There was just a way. I thanked my mom and she asked how I was really doing. I told her I didn't know yet. She said that was okay and that she loved me. After we hung up, I sat on Claire's couch and realized I hadn't slept properly in days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Norman at the altar. I saw his face when the phone rang. I saw his mother lying. I saw everything unraveling in front of 200 people. Claire suggested I talk to someone and gave me the number for Charlotte King, a therapist she'd heard good things about. I called the next morning and got an appointment for that afternoon. Charlotte's office was in a quiet building downtown. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and a direct way of speaking. She asked what brought me in, and I told her the whole story. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked what I needed to feel safe again. Not what happened or how I felt about it. What I needed to feel safe. The question caught me off guard. I admitted I was having trouble sleeping. She asked what was keeping me awake, and I said I kept replaying the moment at the altar over and over. She nodded and asked what I was looking for in those replays. I said I was trying to figure out how I missed everything. Charlotte leaned forward slightly and told me that wasn't the right question. The right question was why Norman chose to deceive me. She said I was angrier at myself than at him, and I needed to redirect that anger where it belonged. I felt tears starting and tried to stop them. Charlotte handed me tissues and said it was okay to be angry at myself, but I needed to understand that Norman deliberately deceived me. His deception said nothing about my intelligence or worth. It said everything about his character. We talked for the full hour, and I left feeling slightly less like I was drowning. The photographer emailed 2 days later. She said she still expected payment for the day even though the wedding didn't happen. She'd shown up and taken pictures of the ceremony before it fell apart. Her invoice was attached. I stared at the number and felt sick. I forwarded the email to Valeria and asked if there was anything she could do. Valeria called me within an hour. She said she'd reached out to the photographer and negotiated a reduced rate. The photographer could still use the pre-ceremony photos for her portfolio, so she was willing to accept 60% of the original cost. It was better than nothing. I agreed and thanked Valeria for handling it. She said she was sorry about everything and hoped I was taking care of myself. I said I was trying. That night, I made the mistake of checking social media. Norman had posted a status about going through a difficult time and learning from mistakes. Several people who didn't know what happened had commented with support. Someone wrote that everyone makes mistakes, and growth is what matters. Another person said they were proud of him for being vulnerable. I stared at the screen, feeling my blood pressure rise. He was painting himself as someone going through a hard time, not someone who'd lied and cheated and destroyed someone else's life. I wanted to comment and tell everyone the truth. I wanted to share screenshots of our text exchanges. I wanted to expose every lie, but I closed the app instead. Claire was right when she said engaging with him would only make things worse. He wasn't worth my energy anymore. I closed the app and put my phone face down on Claire's coffee table. She looked up from her laptop where she'd been working on something and asked if I was okay. I told her I was done looking at his stuff, done caring what story he told himself to sleep at night. She nodded and said that was probably healthy. Then she suggested something that caught me off guard. She said I should write out everything I wanted to say to Norman but never send it, just to get all the feelings out of my head and onto paper. I stared at her for a second because it seemed too simple to actually help, but she insisted it worked for her after a bad breakup years ago. She grabbed a notebook from her desk drawer and handed it to me with a pen. I took it and sat cross-legged on the couch, staring at the blank page for a while before I started writing. Once I started, I couldn't stop. I filled 7 pages with anger and hurt and questions I'd never get answers to. I wrote about the moment at the altar when everything shattered. I wrote about feeling stupid for missing signs that seemed obvious now. I wrote about his mother's lies and his fake pregnancy excuse and how he tried to hug me at the apartment like nothing had happened. I wrote things I wished I'd said when he was making excuses, sharp words that felt good to put on paper even if he'd never hear them. When I finished, my hand was cramping and my eyes were burning, but I felt lighter somehow. Claire asked if I wanted to keep the pages or get rid of them, and I said I wanted them gone. She led me to her fireplace and handed me a lighter. I watched the pages curl and blacken in the flames, and it felt surprisingly good to see all those words turn to ash. My dad called the next morning and asked if I wanted to get lunch. I said yes because I knew he was trying to help, even though neither of us really knew what to say about everything. We met at a sandwich place near his office, and he looked tired when he sat down across from me. He started talking before I could even open my menu. He apologized for not seeing through Norman, said he seemed like such a good guy who treated me well. His voice cracked a little when he said he should have known something was wrong. I reached across the table and put my hand on his. I told him Norman fooled everyone, not just me. I said Norman was good at lying. That was the whole problem. My dad nodded, but I could tell he still felt bad about it. We talked about other things while we ate, normal stuff about work and my brothers and my mom's new garden project. It felt good to have a conversation that wasn't entirely about the disaster at the altar. When we finished eating, my dad paid the check and hugged me in the parking lot. He said he was proud of how I was handling everything, and that helped both of us feel less guilty about missing the signs. I ran into one of Norman's cousins at the grocery store 3 days later. I was reaching for cereal when I heard someone say my name. I turned and there she was, looking uncomfortable but walking toward me anyway. She said she'd been thinking about me and wanted to check how I was doing. I said I was fine and tried to move my cart past her, but she kept talking. She said Norman was really struggling with everything, like that was supposed to make me feel something other than angry. I stopped and looked at her directly. I told her he should be struggling since he created this entire mess by lying for 2 years and cheating 3 months before our wedding. Her face went red and she started to say something about how everyone makes mistakes. I didn't let her finish. I said mistakes are forgetting to call someone back or being late to dinner, not hiding a child and stalking an ex. Then I walked away before she could say anything else. My hands were shaking when I got to the checkout line, but I was glad I'd said it. Valeria called me that evening with final numbers on the wedding costs. I'd been avoiding thinking about the money part because I knew it would make me angry all over again. She went through each vendor and what they'd agreed to. The venue kept half the deposit. The caterer kept $1,000. The photographer took 60% like we'd negotiated. The florist kept everything because flowers had already been ordered. When she finished adding it up, she said I was losing about $12,000 total. It was less than I'd feared when I first started canceling things, but it was still a huge financial hit that made me want to scream. $12,000 gone because Norman couldn't tell the truth. Valeria said she was sorry and that she'd done everything she could to minimize the losses. I thanked her for all her help and hung up. Then I sat on Claire's couch and stared at the wall, doing math in my head about how long it would take me to recover from this. I decided to ask Norman to pay half of the lost deposits. It seemed fair since his lies caused the cancellation in the first place. I opened my laptop and started an email, keeping it formal and direct. I wrote out an itemized list of every lost deposit with the vendor name and amount. The total came to $12,347. I asked him to pay half, which was $6,173.50. I said it was only fair that he take some financial responsibility for the consequences of his actions. I read the email 3 times before sending it, making sure my tone stayed calm and factual. His response came back 2 hours later. It was long, way longer than it needed to be. He wrote about how he was already financially stressed from lawyer fees for the custody situation with Vanessa. He said he was barely making rent right now and couldn't afford to pay me anything. He went on about how he knew he'd messed up, but punishing him financially wouldn't help either of us move forward. The whole message made me want to scream. He was acting like paying for the damage he caused was some kind of unfair punishment instead of basic responsibility. I called Nadia and told her about Norman's response. She asked if I wanted her to send him a legal letter demanding repayment, and I said yes immediately. His refusal to take any financial responsibility was somehow more infuriating than the original betrayal. At least when he lied about his son and the affair, I could tell myself he was weak or scared or whatever excuse made sense. But refusing to pay for the mess he created was just selfish. Nadia said she'd draft something official and have it sent within a few days. The letter would request $6,000 within 30 days and outline potential legal action if he didn't comply. I knew he probably still wouldn't pay, but having it in writing from a lawyer felt important. It felt like I was doing something instead of just accepting that he could destroy my life and walk away without consequences. Norman's father called my dad a week after Nadia sent the letter. My dad called me right after and put me on speaker so I could hear what had happened. Norman's father had offered to pay $3,000 to help settle things and let everyone move forward. He said he knew his son had made terrible choices and he wanted to do something to make it right. My dad asked me what I wanted to do. I thought about it for a minute. $3,000 wasn't the full $6,000 I'd asked for, but it was better than nothing. I told my dad to accept it. I wanted this finished. I wanted to stop thinking about Norman and his family and the money I'd lost. My dad said he'd call back and arrange the payment. Norman's father sent a check 2 days later with a note saying he was sorry for everything. I deposited it without reading the note again. I started looking for a new...
Enough that people have been DMing me asking for news. Here's where things stand. Hannah got into 3 state universities. Full ride to one of them based on her grades and her personal essay about overcoming family trauma. She cried when she got the acceptance letter. Happy tears this time. She's leaving in August. I'm proud of her, but the apartment's going to feel empty. As for me, I used part of the inheritance money to enroll in community college. Night classes. I'm working toward an associate's degree in business management. Maybe I'll run my own warehouse someday. Maybe something else. But I'm finally doing something for myself. The weirdest development came 3 weeks ago. I got a letter from my dad. Actually mailed, not texted or emailed. Handwritten. 3 pages. It was mostly bullshit. Excuses about his unemployment, his stress, his desperation. How he'd convinced himself he deserved that money because he'd taken care of his father at the end while I was off living my life. But buried in the 3rd page was something that felt real. I was jealous of you. Your grandfather always liked you better. Talked about you constantly. Left you money he never offered me. I worked for that man for 20 years and he still chose you. I know that doesn't excuse what I did. I know I destroyed our family. But I need you to understand that it wasn't just about money. It was about feeling like I mattered to him and realizing I never did. I read that letter 5 times, trying to figure out if I felt bad for him. I didn't. Understanding why someone hurt you doesn't mean you have to forgive them. My dad's jealousy and insecurity weren't my problem. He made his choices. I made mine. I didn't respond to the letter, but I didn't throw it away either. I put it in a box with all the legal documents from the case. Maybe someday I'll want to remember how it all went down. Maybe not. Hannah saw it on the counter before I put it away. Did you read it? She asked. Yeah. Are you going to write back? No. She nodded. Good. He doesn't deserve it. We ordered Chinese food that night. Hannah told me about her boyfriend, this kid from her calculus class who wants to be an engineer. I pretended to be stern about it, but she just laughed. You're not dad, she said. You don't get to do the scary protective brother thing. Watch me try. She smiled. You know what's funny? When I think about family now, I think about you, not them. It's like they're people I used to know, and you're the person who matters. You're the person who matters to me too, I said. And I meant it. We've been through hell. We've lost a lot. But we've gained something too. Something real. Something that isn't based on obligation or genetics or guilt. It's based on showing up, on making hard choices, on protecting each other when no one else would. That's family, the real kind. Final update, 1 year later. It's been almost 3 years since Christmas dinner. Since my dad told me I was a burden and my life split into before and after. Hannah's finishing her sophomore year of college. She's studying psychology, says she wants to help kids from messed up families. She comes home on breaks. We video chat every Sunday. She's got a serious boyfriend now, the engineering student. I met him at Thanksgiving. He seems decent, treats her well. I finished my associate's degree. Applied to a university program for business management. Got in. I'm starting in the fall. Working full-time and going to school, but I've been doing that for 2 years now. I can handle it. The apartment doesn't feel empty anymore. I got used to living alone. Kind of like it, actually. I went on a few dates. Nothing serious yet. Turns out having your family implode and sue your father makes for complicated dinner conversation. But I'm not in a hurry. 3 months ago, I got another letter from my dad. This one was shorter, just a few lines. I'm working again. Warehouse job, like you. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm paying back everyone I owe, slowly. Your mother and I are divorced. She's still in Virginia. I don't know if I'll ever fix what I broke, but I want you to know I think about it every day. I think about you and Hannah every day. I still didn't respond. But something in me shifted when I read it. Not forgiveness. I'm not there. Maybe I'll never be. But I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Anger takes energy. It keeps you connected to the person you're angry at. And I didn't want to be connected to him anymore. I wanted to be free, so I let it go. Not the memory, not the lessons I learned, but the active anger, the constant loop of what he did and what I lost. I let it go, Hannah noticed. You seem different, she said over winter break. Lighter. Yeah, I said. I think I'm finally okay. Because of Dad's letter? Because I realized his guilt isn't mine to carry. I did what I had to do. He did what he chose to do. And now we both have to live with it. She was quiet. Then she said, I got a letter from Mom. That surprised me. When? 2 weeks ago. She wants to meet. Says she's been in therapy. Says she understands now that she failed us. Do you want to meet her? I don't know. Part of me wants to hear her out. Part of me thinks it's too late. It's your choice. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. She ended up meeting Mom at a coffee shop near campus. I didn't go. She called me after. How was it? Weird. She looks older. She cried a lot. Apologized for choosing Dad over us. Said she was scared and didn't know what to do. Do you believe her? I think she believes it. I don't know if that's the same thing. Are you going to see her again? Maybe, but not anytime soon. She doesn't get to just come back because she's sorry. I was proud of her for that. For knowing her worth. For not accepting scraps of affection from someone who'd thrown her away. Last week, I drove past my old neighborhood. The house sold again, new family living there now. I didn't feel anything looking at it. No nostalgia, no anger. It was just a house where some stuff happened once. I kept driving. That night, I sat down and finally let myself think about what I'd want to say to my dad if I ever saw him again. Not in anger, just truth. I'd tell him that he taught me what kind of man not to be. He taught me that blood doesn't make you family, choices do. He taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're your parents. I'd tell him that I'm okay now, that Hannah's okay, that we built something good from the mess he left behind, and I'd tell him that I hope he finds peace. But I don't need to be part of that process. Then, I'd walk away, and I wouldn't look back. But I haven't seen him, and honestly, I probably never will. That chapter is closed. These days, I'm focused on what's ahead, on my degree, on my future, on being there for Hannah as she builds her life, on maybe, eventually, building a family of my own, one based on respect and honesty and actually showing up. Because that's what I learned from all of this. Family isn't who you're born to, it's who you choose, who chooses you, who stays when things get hard. Hannah chose me, I chose her, and that's enough. Sometimes people ask if I regret how things went down, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I think I should have tried to work it out privately instead of involving lawyers and police. The answer is no. My dad committed fraud. He stole from me. He kicked me out to hide it. He destroyed Hannah's phone and cornered her in her room. Those aren't things you work out over family dinner. Those are crimes. And they had consequences. I did what I had to do to protect myself and my sister. I'd do it again, every single time. Because some things matter more than keeping the peace, more than maintaining appearances, more than pretending everything's fine when it's not. Things like truth, and justice, and protecting the people who depend on you. 3 years ago, at Christmas dinner, my dad called me a burden. He was wrong. I wasn't the burden. His lies were. His theft was. His jealousy and insecurity were. And once I walked away from all of that, once I stopped carrying weight that was never mine to carry, I finally got to find out who I actually am. I'm a college student, a warehouse supervisor, a brother, a fighter, a survivor. I'm someone who knows what it costs to stand up for yourself, and I'm someone who knows it's worth it. That's my story. That's what happened when my dad called me a burden and I decided to stop being one. I walked away. I fought back. I protected my sister, and I built a life worth living. And if you're reading this because you're in a similar situation, because your family is hurting you or using you or stealing from you, I want you to know something. You're not the burden. You never were, and you deserve better. So take it. Fight for it. Walk away if you have to. Build something new, because you're worth it. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to carry someone else's dysfunction on your back anymore. Be free, be strong, and remember that the family you choose is just as valid as the family you were born into. Maybe more so. Update, 2 years later, the complete end. I'm 28 now. Hannah's 23, graduated college last month with honors. She's got a job lined up at a youth counseling center. She's engaged to that engineering student, Garrett. The wedding's next spring. She asked me to walk her down the aisle. I cried when she asked. Happy tears. I got my bachelor's degree, working as an operations manager now at a different company. Better pay, better hours. I bought a small house, 2 bedrooms, fenced yard. It's mine, all mine. I'm dating someone. Her name's Iris. She's a teacher, funny and smart, and she doesn't take my shit. She knows my whole story. Didn't run away. That means something. My dad reached out again 6 months ago, asked if we could talk. I thought about it for a week. Then I said yes. We met at a park, neutral ground. He looked old. Gray hair, deep lines around his eyes, thinner than I remembered. We sat on a bench and didn't talk for 5 minutes. Just sat there. Finally, he said, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. No, you don't. I want you to know I've paid back everyone I owed. Your money, the credit cards I opened in your name, everything. It took 3 years, but it's done. Okay, I'm in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did. My therapist says I have issues with inadequacy and control, that I took out my failures on you because you represented everything I wasn't. I looked at him, really looked, and I saw a broken man who destroyed his own life because he couldn't handle his emotions like an adult. I can't give you absolution, I said. That's not mine to give. I know. You stole from me. You threw me out. You scared Hannah. Those are facts. Therapy doesn't erase them. I know, he said again. But I don't hate you anymore. I don't feel much of anything when I think about you. And maybe that's the best we'll ever get. He nodded, tears in his eyes. You turned out good, despite me. Because of you. Because of me, I agreed. We talked for another hour, not about reconciliation, just about facts. Where we were, what we were doing, surface level stuff. When we left, he asked if we could do it again sometime. Maybe, I said, but don't expect things to go back to how they were. That family is gone, dead. If we build something new, it'll be on my terms. I understand. I haven't seen him since. But he texts sometimes, just small things. Hope you're doing well, proud of your accomplishments. He never asks for more than I'm willing to give. Hannah hasn't seen him, doesn't want to, and I respect that. Mom's still in Virginia. Hannah sees her maybe twice a year. It's cordial but distant. Mom never apologized in a way that mattered, just said sorry and expected that to fix everything. It didn't. But Hannah's okay with it. She's not waiting for her mother to become someone she's not. Last week, I was helping Hannah move into her new apartment, the one she'll share with Garrett after the wedding. We were unpacking boxes and I found a photo album I'd never seen. Inside were pictures from our childhood, birthdays, holidays, random days, and in every single one where I was in the frame, I was in the background, out of focus, half cut off. Hannah saw me looking. That's why I never showed you, she said. Even in the pictures, they made you invisible. I closed the album. I'm not invisible anymore. No, she smiled. You're not. We finished unpacking, ordered pizza, sat on her new couch in her new apartment in her new life. You know what's funny? She said. I used to be so scared of ending up like Mom and Dad, broken and bitter and blaming everyone else for my problems. You're nothing like them. Because of you, you showed me what it looks like to choose yourself, to set boundaries, to build something better. You did that, I said. I just didn't abandon you. That's everything, though. You didn't abandon me. When you could have, when it would have been easier. You stayed. I hugged my sister. My brilliant, strong, incredible sister who survived the same house I did and came out fighting. Always, I said. I'll always stay. I called my son's girlfriend daughter and I'll never forget her reaction. My son's been dating Sydney for 2 years now. Before she first visited, he gave me one strict rule. Don't mention her mother or any family members. Something bad happened and she's completely cut off from them. I didn't ask for details. It wasn't my place. When I met Sydney, I genuinely liked her. She's thoughtful, respectful, and you can tell she loves my son. We bonded quickly despite only meeting a handful of times. Last week, they came to visit while I was working on my truck in the driveway. Just routine maintenance, oil change, checking tire pressure, basic stuff. Sydney wandered outside looking curious. What are you doing? I wiped my hands. Just some basic upkeep. Keeps the truck running smooth. She watched for a minute, then admitted, I don't know the first thing about cars. I've always just paid a mechanic for everything. I was surprised. Even basic stuff like this? She nodded, almost embarrassed. Yeah, my dad never taught me, and after he passed, I just never learned. I can teach you a couple things if you want, I offered. Save you some money. These basics aren't hard. Her face lit up. Really? You wouldn't mind? For the next 30 minutes, I showed her how to check tire pressure, find the oil dipstick, check fluid levels. She was a fast learner, asked good questions, wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. When she successfully checked the last tire on her own, I felt genuinely proud. I smiled, patted her shoulder, and without thinking said, Well done, my daughter. The words just slipped out. It's what I always said to my son when he learned something new. But instantly, everything changed. Sydney's smile vanished. Her face went pale. Then her eyes filled with tears. Deep, gut-wrenching, sobbing. She dropped to her knees on the garage floor, wailing, full body shaking, curled up in a ball. I crouched down immediately. Sydney, what's wrong? But she couldn't respond. She was hyperventilating, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. I tried everything, rubbing her back, offering water, but nothing worked. My son came running out, face going from confused to panicked. What happened? I don't know. We were just... He didn't wait. He helped Sydney inside to his old bedroom. The door closed. I stood frozen in my driveway, completely lost. 2 hours passed. My son brought her dinner upstairs. Finally, around 9 p.m., he came down. His face was hard. What did you say to her? I explained everything. The car work. How I'd said, Well done, my daughter, because I was proud. His face turned red. Are you serious? I specifically told you not to mention her family. I didn't mention her family. I just said daughter because that's what you say when you're proud. It slipped out. Well, you triggered something, he snapped. She's having a complete breakdown upstairs. Can I apologize, please? I didn't mean to hurt her. Forget it. She's not ready to talk. He went back upstairs. I barely slept that night. 2 days of silence passed. Then my son called. Can you come over? Sydney wants to talk. My stomach dropped. Of course. When I arrived, my son hugged me immediately. I'm sorry for yelling. I should have handled that better. It's okay. I understand. Sydney's in the bedroom. She wants to talk privately. I walked down the hall and knocked softly. Sydney was sitting on the bed, eyes red. She started apologizing immediately. I'm so sorry for breaking down like that. I'm a grown woman. I should control my emotions better. I haven't had a meltdown like that in 3 years. I sat across from her. You don't need to apologize. I'm sorry for hurting you. She took a shaky breath. It's not your fault. You didn't know. I just need to explain. Then she told me everything. Her dad died her senior year of college. Her parents married young. Her mom was pregnant, both barely adults. Money was always tight. After her dad passed, she tried staying close to her mother. She'd visit regularly, usually with her boyfriend, until one afternoon when she showed up unannounced. She found her boyfriend in bed with her own mother. Sydney ran down the hallway, her sobs echoing through the house she grew up in. She stumbled down the basement stairs, the one place that still felt like her dad's sanctuary. But the door to his workshop was open, the lock broken. Inside, she found boxes labeled with dates, dozens of them, all from the last 2 years of his life. Sydney opened the first one and found surveillance equipment, photos, recordings, all documenting her mother and boyfriend together. The last item was a letter addressed to her dated the day before her father died that started with, Sydney, if you're reading this, they've already killed me and you're next because you're the only heir left, and I'm writing this in case I don't make it through tomorrow. Your mother and Trent planned everything. The life insurance policy I took out 6 months ago for $2.5 million. They think I don't know, but I know everything. Sydney's hands trembled as she held the letter. The basement felt colder suddenly. She kept reading. I installed cameras everywhere after I overheard them talking in the garage. October 15th. Your mother said my heart medication would be easy to tamper with. Trent laughed and said it would look natural. A man my age having a heart attack. No one would question it. Sydney's stomach turned. She looked at the date on the letter. October 29th. Her father died October 30th. I've documented everything. Videos, audio recordings, bank statements showing the money they've been moving. Your mother opened a secret account 3 months ago. Same week she convinced me to increase my life insurance. The evidence is all here, organized by date. Take it to Detective Morrison at the precinct. He's the only one I trust. The letter continued. Sydney, you're in danger. The policy names you as beneficiary if your mother dies within 5 years of my death. They know this. I heard them discussing it last week. Trent said accidents happen to young women all the time. Your mother didn't disagree. She just asked how long they'd have to wait to make it look unrelated. Sydney couldn't breathe. The basement walls felt like they were closing in. I'm changing my will tomorrow. Everything goes into a trust that releases to you on your 30th birthday. Your mother gets nothing. If something happens to me, she'll be furious and desperate. Stay away from her, Sydney. Get this evidence to Morrison immediately. Don't trust anyone else. Don't tell your mother you found this. Just disappear if you need to. Live your life somewhere she can't find you. I love you more than anything. You've always been the light of my life. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. Dad. Sydney set the letter down with shaking hands. She went through the rest of the boxes methodically. Her father had been thorough. 19 thumb drives, each labeled with dates and descriptions. Audio recordings from hidden microphones. Her mother and Trent in the kitchen discussing how to spike his medication. Her mother on the phone with Trent talking about timing, making sure they had alibis. One video made Sydney's blood run cold. Her mother standing in the garage holding her father's pill organizer, carefully emptying capsules and replacing the contents with something else. Trent standing watch by the door. The timestamp read October 28th. 2 days before her father died, there were bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts. Emails between her mother and Trent going back 3 years, long before her father got sick. They'd been planning this since Sydney was 19. The final folder contained a copy of the will her father filed the day before he died. Everything to Sydney in a trust managed by his lawyer, Garrett Walsh. Her mother was specifically excluded. A note attached explained that Walsh had the original and instructions to contact Sydney directly when she turned 30, bypassing her mother entirely. Sydney heard footsteps upstairs, her mother's voice calling her name, then Trent's lower voice joining in. They were both there, in her father's house. She grabbed the letter, shoved 3 thumb drives in her jacket pocket, and looked for another way out. The basement had a storm door leading to the backyard. She pushed it open as quietly as possible and climbed out into the afternoon sun. Her car was parked on the street, She walked around the side of the house, trying to look casual. Her mother appeared in the front window, saw her, waved. Sydney waved back, kept walking, got in her car, started the engine. Her mother came out onto the porch. "Sydney, sweetie, where are you going?" "Just remembered I have class," Sydney called back. "I'll text you later." She pulled away before her mother could respond. Drove straight to the police station. Asked for Detective Morrison. He was out. Expected back in an hour. Sydney sat in the parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mother. "When are you coming back? We need to talk about something important." Another text. "Trent and I have a surprise for you." Sydney's skin crawled. She didn't respond. Just sat there watching the station entrance. Finally, 40 minutes later, a silver sedan pulled in. A man in his 50s got out, wearing a badge on his belt. Sydney grabbed the evidence and approached him. "Detective Morrison?" He turned, looked at her with tired eyes. "Yes? My name is Sydney Walsh. My father was Bennett Walsh. He told me to bring this to you." Morrison's expression changed immediately. Recognition, then concern. "Sydney, your father and I were old friends. Come inside." They sat in an interrogation room. Sydney spread everything out on the table, the letter, the thumb drives, the copies of bank statements. Morrison read the letter twice, his jaw tightened. "How long have you had this?" he asked. "I found it today, about 2 hours ago. I came straight here." He picked up one of the thumb drives. "Your father called me 3 days before he died. Said he needed to talk to me about something important. We were supposed to meet for coffee that morning. He never showed up. Got the call about his death around noon." Sydney's chest tightened. "He died that morning." "I know." Morrison looked at the evidence. "I had suspicions. The coroner ruled it a heart attack, but something felt off. Your father was healthy, took care of himself. Then suddenly he's dead and your mother is collecting life insurance money before the funeral is even over. What do we do?" Sydney asked. Morrison stood up. "First we preserve this evidence, then we watch these videos, and then we decide how to proceed. But Sydney, I need you to understand something. Your mother can't know you have this. Can't know you've talked to me. If your father was right about the threat to your life, we need to keep you safe. I already left." She saw me drive away. "Where are you staying?" "With my boyfriend, Trent, but he's..." Sydney stopped, realization hitting her. "He's in on it. I can't go back there." Morrison nodded. "Do you have somewhere else? Family? Friends?" Sydney thought about it. Her roommate, Kelly. They'd been friends since freshman year. Kelly didn't know her mother well. Had never met Trent. "I can stay with my roommate." "Good. Don't tell your mother where you are. Don't answer her calls. I'll have an officer escort you to your boyfriend's place to get your things. You go in, grab what you need, and leave. Don't engage with him if he's there. Understood?" Sydney nodded. She felt numb, like she was watching this happen to someone else. Morrison made some calls. 20 minutes later, she was following a patrol car to Trent's apartment. He wasn't home. She packed fast. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, important documents. Left her key on the counter. Wrote a note. "We're done. Don't contact me." She crashed at Kelly's place that night. Told her she and Trent broke up. Didn't mention the rest. Kelly didn't push for details. Just made popcorn and put on a movie. Sydney couldn't focus. Her phone kept buzzing. Her mother calling. Texting. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Trent said you left him. What's going on? We need to talk. It's important." Sydney turned off her phone. Lay awake in Kelly's spare bedroom until sunrise, wondering if her father had felt this same fear. If he'd known those last few days that he was out of time.